Hello, welcome to the Atzmus blog. My name is Yaakov Yitzchak, and I'm here to tell you some quick secrets about this building that we see here called 770 Eastern Parkway. Basically, it says in this prophecy, after the second Beis Hamikdash temple was destroyed thousands of years ago, that basically the people who were exiled outside the land of Israel thought that they would be further away from Hashem once they're exiled from the physical land of Israel to the outside the land. Therefore, Hashem told the prophet Ezekiel to tell them that don't worry, even in the time and the place of the exile, Hashem will be with them just like He was in the Beis Hamikdash, because Hashem says that I will have a mini Beis Hamikdash, a mini temple for them in the land of the exile, which, according to the commentary, says refers to the synagogues, all the houses of Torah study and prayer in the land of the exile. And based on many sources, says there's all the synagogues are like a replacement for the Beis Hamikdash, for the temple. But in every generation since that time, there's been at least one synagogue per generation, which is the synagogue of the Rebbe of the generation, the main leader of the generation, which has been the main primary synagogue, as it's explained in many sources. And that main synagogue is like a literal replacement for the Beis Hamikdash. The same spiritual energy that was manifested in the Beis Hamikdash is manifested in that one synagogue in the land of the exile. So in every generation, it's explained in the Talmud, Megillah, page 29 at length, explaining how there's specifically one place. In fact, it says a story where there was some rabbis who were sitting in one synagogue, and then all of a sudden they heard the Shekhinah, the energy of the Creator. They heard it, whatever that means. They heard it come in, they felt it, and they heard it come in at that moment. Meaning, like, before that, some other synagogue was the main synagogue, but something happened that made the synagogue they were sitting in the main synagogue at the time. Point is, there's only one synagogue. And the Lubavitch Rebbe tells us in the year 57-52, in a packet he gave out, which was edited from an earlier talk, basically, he brings sources that the leaders of Chabad in each generation are the leaders of the generation, and therefore the synagogues that the leaders of Chabad established are this main synagogue that it talks about in the Talmud. And it says, similar to how the Sanhedrin, the court, the main court in the Beis Hamikdash, which gave the instructions for the entire Jewish people, they were basically exiled after the destruction of the temple. They were exiled to 10 different places. And so too, Chabad was exiled to 10 different places since it started in Russia, then it came to America. Point is, short story long, this building right here, 770 Eastern Parkway, it says in the talks, is like the replacement for the temple, for the Beis Hamikdash, in the land of the exile, right now, basically. So that's number one. And that's because the leaders of Chabad, the Rebbe of the generation, and in general, besides for that, the Rebbe of the generation, the leader of the generation, is like the Sanhedrin, for example. The Sanhedrin in the Beis Hamikdash gave people instructions of how to live their life. So too, the Rebbe gives us instructions. So that's one of the reasons that it explains why the house of the Rebbe, which is the synagogue of the Rebbe of the generation, is the main replacement of the Beis Hamikdash, because it's like replacement of the Sanhedrin, that which gives instructions to the world. And that's this building right here. So it's said, based on many other proofs, that this building, established a few decades ago, but New York, 770 Eastern Parkway, is the Beis Hamikdash. That's number one. It's like the Beis Hamikdash, even in the time of the exile, even greater than the land of Israel during exile, is this building. That's one that it says in the talk. But then the second point was that there's a general concept that says when Mashiach comes, it says all of the synagogues will eventually be uprooted from their places and attached to the Beis Hamikdash in the future times. It says that the Beis Hamikdash will descend miraculously from the heavens, basically on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, in Yerushalayim, and then it will pull to it all the synagogues that are found in all the whole world will come miraculously to the Beis Hamikdash. It's just make a short story even longer. Basically, the proof for that mentioned in the Marsha in the Talmud there that says my house will be called a house of prayer for all the nations. So that's the simple meaning, that the Beis Hamikdash will be like for all the nations also. But it says the meaning, that the added meaning is that my house, meaning the third Beis Hamikdash that will descend from the heavens miraculously, will, the word for be called in Hebrew could also mean it will call, meaning the third Beis Hamikdash will call to the houses of prayer that are found in the lands of the nations. So it's like my house will call to the houses of prayer in the lands of the nations, and that will pull. Basically, the Beis Hamikdash will like pull towards it all of the synagogues in the lands of the nations, so that all the synagogues will miraculously become uprooted from their places and go to the Beis Hamikdash on the Temple Mount in Yerushalayim. So that is what it says in the Talmud, and that's like accepted by everyone. But then it says a novelty in the Lubavitch talk that says there's a similar idea that it says that Sanhedrin, the court that would give the instructions, has to be next to the Mizbeach, the altar, which would be where they would offer the animal sacrifices, which is where the main atonement. The different reasons why the court, which gave instructions, has to be next to the altar, which gave atonement. Many different reasons why, but that's like the law. So it's just like the Sanhedrin has to be next to the place of atonement. Similarly, it says since the synagogue of the Rebbe in each generation is like the Sanhedrin, since it is the place that gives instructions to the whole world. So it says it makes sense to say that when all the synagogues will become attached to the Beis Hamikdash in the future times, that this synagogue and all the synagogues which were the main synagogues in each generation will be closer to the Beis Hamikdash than the other synagogues. Just like you have to put the Sanhedrin, the place of the courts, which gave instructions to all Jewish people, next to the place of atonement, which is the altar. Similarly, since the houses of the rabbis in each generation are like the places of that, or the houses that give instruction, like the Sanhedrin, so it makes sense that they would be closer, like to the altar, to the whole Beis Hamikdash. So basically, it says in the second point, not only is it during the exile, during the time and place in the exile, is this the main place, like the Beis Hamikdash, but it says even after the Beis Hamikdash will miraculously descend from the heavens and come into Yerushalayim and the Temple Mount, even then it says this synagogue will be closer to all the other synagogues, and meaning this synagogue plus all the other synagogues which were like the main synagogues in that generation. It says they will be like literally touching the Beis Hamikdash, basically. So that's number 2. And then number 3, so first was during the time of the exile, this is like the main place, like the Beis Hamikdash. Second means even after the redemption is complete, this will be like closer to all the synagogues, basically. But the third point I mentioned was that even during the time of the actual redemption itself, meaning when the base at the time where the third Beis Hamikdash will actually descend, then there's also an advantage of this synagogue to the other synagogues, which means that's based on a statement from the Talmud, which is how we know all this. Which basically, Rabbi Shimon, the son of Yochai, says that how precious are the people of Yisrael, because it says everywhere they go, the Shekhinah, the energy of Hashem, follows them. And he brings a proof basically different places, how when they went to Egypt originally, Hashem followed them, and when they went down to other places, and then basically when they went down to Babylon, the Shekhinah, the energy of Hashem, followed them. But then it concludes there, it says that not only when they go to exile, Hashem was with them, but even at the time that they are redeemed from the exile, the Shekhinah is redeemed with them. Because it says Hashem will return your captives in the Torah, but it says the word return your captives really in Hebrew should be read, he will return with your captives, grammatically speaking. You can look there basically for the details. The point is, it says that Hashem will return with your captives. So in order for Hashem, the Shekhinah, to return with us, it has to actually be in the exile itself. So it says in the talk there, it says that what is the Shekhinah? The Shekhinah is mainly manifested in the Beis Hamikdash, in the third temple, mainly. So it says one that the Beis Hamikdash descends from the heavens, since it has to be redeemed with us, so it doesn't really fit to say that it would first descend in Yerushalayim and then pull towards it all the synagogues, because that wouldn't be redeemed with us. So it says that since it will be redeemed with us, it means that the third Beis Hamikdash itself will descend from within the place of the exile itself. And it says if it has to be somewhere in the place of the exile, so where else would it be other than the place where the Shekhinah has been the whole time, which is the main synagogue of the Rebbe in the generation. So basically it concluded there the proof that says that when Mashiach comes, it says the third Beis Hamikdash will actually descend right here at this spot in 770 Eastern Parkway.